So here's a note that's really important. Friday, April 3rd, 2026. It is 5:19 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am working through a meditation. I'm praying, working through a meditation, and I have made some mental notes, very important timelines. I need to correct one. There were two Dr. Crenshaws. One was older and had two daughters, and he was working in the Folsom Sierra Health and Wellness House, the location in Folsom, not the first house that you go to where you kind of just move in and it's really trashy and it looks like you could disappear in a second, but the second place. And the place where I had purchased a gladiator cornhole board set and some bags, and I left it there as a gift because of them trying to help me. That place, it was a great set too. So, and then there was also a Dr. Kershaw at the Concord location on Pacheco Street. Now, the one on Pacheco Street that was doing my care virtually, the psychiatrist, he would do virtual sessions with me on Pacheco Street. He and Ross Bilson, I believe when I left that place, when I had traveled and took the Amtrak, if it wasn't that time, then it was when I left Folsom. I got to get the times right, so I need to look into this. But what's important is Ross Christopher Bilson and Dr. Kershaw, they went on a killing spree. And part of what the massacre that they did was they were swinging. I remember just trying to keep Ross in my meditations, and I remember something being translated where he was swinging on his climbing gear and he had a blade and he was slaughtering innocent people that were trying to escape the more terrible parts of Utah by going to the mountainous areas and camping and trying to keep their family safe there. So, with that said, I feel that this needs to be investigated more thoroughly. I do have a counterpart in these investigations. He may have run off to try and do something as a man about it, and he may have gotten into his own agenda. But so it must be when I left Pacheco Street and made my way using the Amtrak and other modes of transportation while I was on the bus going towards the Amtrak station. However I got there, that's when Ross and Dr. Kershaw both were bragging about, hey, why don't you, we're going to beat you to your destination, or we're right. He was trying to incite through manipulation and some type of instilling fear, idea of instilling fear that he was right behind me in the same bus. And all of it wasn't true. Now, the issue that I'm facing is that I can't put the exact dates together, and there's two Dr. Kershaws. Well, let's look at it practically. The younger one is the one that most likely went out there with Ross and did this. So with that said, we need to keep in mind that Ross has been not just accused, but caught in multiple different crimes. Now, with that said, he has paid and he's even kidnapped people that are like his double. And he's had the funds to do so because he did steal that copyright from me. He stole my sealed box from the place that I was given permission to mail it to. And he used some of that money to mutilate and torture a victim that looked just like him in front of the public. He did it in a deep green bathtub that belongs to someone in Adam Watson's family. He did this for the reason that to put at bay people's desire to find and bring Ross to justice. He did this in some type of showmanship type manner to where he made it seem like Ross himself was the victim, but he was keeping the victim unconscious. He looked like Ross. He was talking for the victim, and they mutilated and tortured this victim, and I believe they left him in Maui, in Hawaii. He does not even urinate correctly because of how severe this mutilation was. So these are the things that Ross does. With that said, I would like to just stop and think for a second. What else correlates? The incident in Utah when I had stayed there in Eagle Mountain. He took out the neighbors who lived below me. He would take them out. One of the neighbors that lived below me, she was being constantly abused by Monty Thompson. That's something that I believe Monty or Matthew Norton had paid for. And Ross ended up showing up, and that girl that was abused by Monty Thompson also had a little sister. Now, Ross ended up somehow taking out the girl that was abused by Monty Thompson, the older sister. She even had a nickname. They called her Pikachu. And I believe her name was Melissa. And he took her out, and just on one random day, he was raping and fornicating with this young girl, and he did it so severely, and he induced so many drugs that it was brought to the point of murder, of her death. And then after that, he had Jerry Procorio, I believe that's the name he uses in Oroville or Bangor, California, for the Sierra Health and Wellness location that they called the Elijah House. Him and Jerry worked with Jeffrey Dahmer and had her body given to someone so that they could deliver it to Dahmer either while he was locked up or somewhere else. And he mutilated and fornicated with her dead body on October 31st. And that was a number of years ago. I have to get the exact date. I have it in my notes. About 3 years ago. And after this had happened, they took her sister, Ross Christopher Bilson, and Michaela Maroney, and they promised her if she lied and pretended, using her sister's identity, to play that she was Melissa if she needed to be, or to cover for this crime, that they would take care of her and they would not allow her to be murdered and trafficked to the point of death in the street. And so with that, Ross Christopher Bilson was even caught taking this young sister of Melissa's to Billings, Montana, he brought her to a place near West Echo Drive that belonged possibly to Steve Austin. And that is where Ross Christopher Billson and Michaela Maroney both molested and raped this young girl out of complete desire to tempt me, to get me to come over and join in some type of, I guess what he thought would be a way to entrap me. And he, for some reason, believed it would be it wouldn't fail. He would be able to snare me no matter what. I did attempt to go out and look for this, for her, and I found their footprints in the snow. There were 2 sets of adult footprints and a very small set along with them. So there was a little girl on that property that belonged to the person that I mentioned. And they were there. There's going to be evidence through flight records, through whatever means of transportation they took. They most likely flew there because they felt impenetrable, above the law, because of what Ross Christopher Billson was known for doing. And he would personally escort young girls like this to random people's houses, and they would take advantage of them. So he believes he has some sense of immunity because of the codependency that's involved in these crimes. But he's actually one of the main oppressors, one of the main manipulators, with just the instance that I discussed right now in temptation, in trying to entrap somebody in an idea of seduction that involved Michaela Maroney and a young girl. He would do stuff like this and use his body and theirs, and some people would fall for this stuff. But he needs to stop and understand that he is the main oppressor in this, that he's the reason that people are making these mistakes because of the amount of temptation that is with him using the substances that he uses in this instance of superfluity of naughtiness, if that's what we can call it. It's very disgraceful. It's very, it humbles me just to talk about it. I have been tempted to the point of almost failing more than one time. I did not take any steps further than just beating myself up personally, meaning I didn't involve myself, body, mind, and soul with as a whole with anybody in that manner. But I had been tempted multiple times due to the fact that I pursued these trails that I had to follow in order to try to find the children that were taken from my family. And these are some of the things and those were some of the places that I had been to. Utah, Billings, Montana. Before I even knew I had children, that someone stole and kidnapped my children like that, I had traveled to New York, to Pittsburgh. I had traveled to Kansas City. I even stopped in Washington before I went from New York to Pittsburgh. I stopped in Washington, D.C. to see if I could raise my voice or find a VA or some type of legal help. And in all of this, I've even stopped at the FBI office. I've made phone calls. And those were the days and those were the years when I was in New York and Pittsburgh, when I still yet had not found out the actual truth. because of the amount of lies and the amount of crime involved in keeping me from the truth, being raped by more than 3 or 4 people at one time. Having my first experiences with a young lady filmed without my permission or knowledge, being raped as a young teenager by people like Adrian Manson. These people have latched on and they have continued a series of brutal crimes and manipulation that have gone so far that they ended up linking up with high-profile entertainers who had large amounts of money. And this is where we're at. This is the pinnacle that we're on right now, looking at the entirety of this matter. So let's check it out together. Let's understand what we can. Maybe if some of our meditations bring up a truth or a means of reasonable doubt that can be delivered correctly. For example, if it has to do with copyright infringement, and you have been approached by Ross Christopher Bilson in any deal and any idea of getting into business together, if you've done it already, and he said that if he'd mentioned that he stole this copyright from me, and you do not want to be sucked into the negative end of justice, go ahead and call the Postmaster General and explain this situation. I've gotten a hold of the Postmaster General already, and they are looking into this. That's what they told me. That's what we need to do. If you've seen Ross Christopher Bilson or any of the people I've mentioned with children that were strange or didn't belong to them, bring that up to your local CPS or mandated reporter. Call the FBI if you have to. Leave a report. Please, let's get together and get this resolved. Thank you.